Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about a really exciting time that we are about to step into. I'm coming to you live today in the spirit of celebration, as yes, we do have Pluto finally leaving the sign of Capricorn at last. We are just now on the precipice of stepping into a very different paradigm where we will be exiting this 5 or 6 year cycle that we've been in of Pluto being on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius. From about now until February 2025, we will be moving through a bridge or a liminal phase from that paradigm where we had the anaretic Pluto in Capricorn to being fully in Pluto in Aquarius. Today I want to hold space for that as Pluto just crossed into Aquarius on November 19th. In this live premiere today, it is November 22nd, so we are about to go into day 3 of being in Pluto in Aquarius finally. Can you already see how much things are changing? Yes, we are very much changed people at this point in time. Also, there have been things happening at the global level that are very Pluto in Aquarius and very different and perhaps unexpected, as we see a large conglomerate of similar ideas coming together. But that large conglomerate of similar ideas may be contrary to where a lot of people's hearts are. We are moving, yes, into a time period where everybody is going to start thinking differently about life and about their purposes, as there's this really strong feeling of approaching something at last that we've known we were moving toward. It's almost like being on a long voyage and seeing that destination come into sight on the horizon. I feel that for some of us, there is an arrival starting now for the very lucky people, for the people who have really gambled properly and also put the work in behind it. There is an arrival already happening in November of 2024. And then for most people, there is an imminence. Okay, there's like an imminent feeling of finally getting somewhere that we have been pushing for a long time. So what I want to do in today's video, everyone, I just want to hold space for Pluto moving into Aquarius. What I want us to do together in this live premiere is I want us to spend a little bit of time thinking about, where has my heart been as a person since about 2019, 2020? How did things change for me throughout 2021 and 2022? As we went through the final degrees of Pluto and Capricorn, and we started seeing Pluto move into Aquarius for the first few times and getting those retrogrades, what character arcs have I been seeing? How do I identify differently with myself now? Am I fully behind who I now know that I am? And am I, perhaps, and don't worry if this is what's happening to you, am I also trying to really squeeze blood out of the turnip, or am I trying to really dive into someone that I'm not anymore? What we see with Pluto as a planet is that we have transformative qualities as humans, okay? Pluto is the natural ruler of Scorpio. Pluto is at an interior level. It is the force that represents human transformation, also destructive tendencies in the shadow, and healing tendencies in its light form. So whenever you have Pluto changing signs, because Pluto takes so long to go around the sun, it's going to become very evident what collective destructive tendencies humanity currently has and what collective healing tendencies humanity has. And the crazy thing about the sign of Aquarius is that it has a very difficult way of operating psychologically. It's very easy perhaps to spin something that's destructive as something that's healing and vice versa. So we're going to see a lot of need for discretion coming in during this time, you all. We're going to be seeing that also, with Pluto representing, in a sense, some type of poison factor that has both destructive and healing qualities, in the sense that a lot of medicines that heal terrible illnesses can be very deadly in high dose, but also healing in small doses. It's going to be this way for pretty much everything, you guys. Okay, as we're getting Pluto into Aquarius. So with Pluto in Capricorn, it in a way, it nullified or muted the very potent elements of Pluto and made it very material. So we had like potency represented by money or resources or material. And that's going to change with Pluto in Aquarius. And we're going to move back into like more of a psychological level potency and also human potency, okay? Group, collective potency, conglomerate potency. And there's going to be such an importance placed in the beginning of this transit on making sure that our amounts of potency are right, because too much potency is destructive, too little is lifeless, and we have to get just enough to really cultivate a powerful, meaningful, and flavorful life. So that's going to be a lot of how I'm also working with the 2025 year cycle. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel below if you want to be notified. Yes, mark your calendars as well for December 20th. We will be doing the 2025 year ahead forecasts for all signs as a live premiere at 6 p.m. Pacific time on that day. But this is a lot of what I'm already feeling coming up for 2025 is like getting the sliding scales right, getting the measurements right. Too much sugar makes something overpowering, too little it's bitter. Too much medicine is creating a dependence, and too little is not resolving the illness. We've got to get these levels right. This is going to be at every single point in our life. And I think that this is also the synergy of having the South Node in Libra at a trine, okay, to Pluto as it enters the sign of Aquarius. It's going to really work in a balancing function as we first get the full dose of this transit, because we haven't seen that yet, you all. And between now and February, we're going to slowly be introduced to what the full energy or dose of Pluto in Aquarius is, because it has no more retrograde cycles back into Capricorn. I also feel that pretty quickly with Pluto moving into Aquarius and being done with its retrogrades in Capricorn, I feel like there's going to be a sweep of dematerialization. I feel that some of the material psychology and all of this thought about like resources and physical things and, real produced or manufactured or built or constructed elements of the human experience are going to dematerialize a little bit in the quantums, meaning like someone who perhaps has been thinking all about like the very physical material elements of their life, the hedonism that we've been having. This may start to reduce a little bit, and we may actually start to think about more of like an internal feeling and like how it actually makes us feel in real life, instead of just these sort of like carbon copy ideals about like the more material things I have, the better, or the bigger my house is, the better, or the more houses I own, the better. I'm going to see some people right about now and through February who've done it. Okay, they have it. They have hedonism, whether it's through debt or through some type of success or some type of like inheritance or whatever. There's going to be this feeling of like, well, I'm actually not feeling that great living in this big house, or, I have a certain like concept of what it means to be in this status, but like actually I'm quite exhausted, or I'm quite unhappy with what it actually makes me feel like inside. So pay attention to this, however this might be manifesting in your life, where you're like telling yourself a story about like at an abstract or conceptual level, sounds good, but like actually it's building a lot of destructive elements in my life, whether this is from like a material standpoint or relationships. This is like the main thing that I'm feeling about this final passage of Pluto, because Pluto in Capricorn, one of the shadows would have been like these powerful concepts, okay, these powerful ownership constructs, these powerful infrastructural components of human psychology. And that's going to really change like right now, okay, and between now and February, there's going to be all of a sudden this feeling of like, but where am I inside? Where also is the human context to this? What impact do these structures have on all of the connections or relationships in my life? And am I also invested in something that's blind? Okay, because the thing about material, money, density, it's all inanimate and it's all blind. So Pluto and Capricorn would have also had something blind about it. And we're going to be seeing people finally, honestly, able to see now with Pluto and Aquarius. And they're going to be like, I have been putting all of my life force energy into generating some type of material structure or context. And there's no human factor to it. It's sort of like a blind construct. And here's the thing, you all, this can like branch off into Pluto and Aquarius. What do I mean? So we actually can also see a doubling down of this idea about blind constructs, meaning that also Pluto and Aquarius can have this. And it actually won't be until Pluto and Pisces, okay, that people are really at a more collective level able to kind of like open their eyes to the real human element that's going on, but they're going to start feeling it during Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Capricorn was very dehumanizing, right? You had like a rise of a sort of plutocracy, right? That was revolving around material resources and global trade and things like that. And now with Pluto and Aquarius, it's going to sort of like shift over almost like a kaleidoscope into a certain like power group rising through like technology, AI, which is closer, right? Because resources are totally blind, but you know, technology and AI, this has like a human network attached to it. Social media, social networks, right? So it's like inching toward over this like 100 years. I'm sorry, actually it's like 30 years, 40 years. Inching from blindness to vision from Pluto and Capricorn to Pluto and Pisces, and Pluto and Aquarius is the middle state. And there's a lot of violence there. Okay, so I'm a little bit worried about this. And I think it's something we have to pray about because, yes, if you look back in history, you know, you see a lot of revolutions during Pluto and Aquarius. You see a lot of, you know, populist sentiments, and I definitely see that right now as well. And in a sense, that can be a blind construct or a seeing construct depending on what it's revolving around or depending on what its aims are. So we have some things now with Pluto and Aquarius that are waking up and some things that are still blind. And it's going to, the difficulty of this transit is going to be like discerning, right? Discerning what is a seeing sort of construct or what is an awake thing to operate through and what is blind, okay? Because also sometimes what is blind is very attractive because it's inanimate, so we can make it whatever we want to make it. This is like money. This is like all the Pluto and Capricorn stuff, right? Corporatism, money, finance, walls, structures, and they have purposes, but those purposes are totally dependent on who wields popular support in operating these things. So there's like this operational question happening with Pluto and Aquarius. Who is at the helm? Who is doing it? Who is making these functions happen? And also who's speaking about it? Who is with the microphone? Okay, it's a big thing about Pluto and Aquarius. Who's holding the microphone? Okay, I'm looking down at my microphone on my desk right now, and I'm like kind of freaked out about being in one of those positions, but like it can be awesome. So I recommend you guys to like, yeah, use your voices, but try to do it from like a place that is awake and not blind. Try to not just keep falling into the same points over and over again, or like other people's ideas, other people's concepts. There's going to be a need to further individuate to offset the sort of collective fear-mongering that's going to happen. So yes, collective genres, all right, such as like political parties or certain religious movements, or, you know, even New Age astrology stuff, all of these like genre, I don't know what the word is, like these things that represent some type of collective thought genre. These are going to be similar to what I'm talking about with these material structures. Some of them are going to be blind and some of them are going to be awake. I would not put any labels on any of them right now, but we're going to have to be very discerning. Okay. And we're going to have to also think about like every day when we're listening to something like, is this pushing me or bringing my mind somewhere that I want to like really be at? Is this awake to me? Is this also dark or light? Okay. Because I'm not saying that darkness is bad, but there is a heavy dark imbalance since about 2020, because we had that triple Capricorn conjunction in 2020. And then we had a little bit of a of an offsetting, barely, I mean, a little bit in 2021 and 2024. And 2022 was like a very awesome climactic energy where miracles happen. And there have been a lot of miracles happen, even in this dark energy over these last 4 or 5 years. But it's been very dark, and it's been very much a challenge and a very much a test, I think, from the universe for some people to really like cultivate or extract positive meaning from what they've been through. If you're someone who has had any good experience or any type of like personal graduation in life, any kind of empowering narrative over these last 4 or 5 years, I mean, you're on the right path, because most people would just look back at these last few years as like a very dystopian or unfortunate feeling, even if they had certain good things happen, because there's just an overtone of darkness. But that's what I love about people in this space, people who are subscribed or listen to this YouTube channel, is that we kind of have an edge up. Like, we know how to like work, you know, through difficult trials and difficult times with an element of hope and an element of, you know, really seeing the miracle in the pain and seeing like the path forward, even if it's narrow. So that was really what started to happen in 2023, was there was that narrowing. You guys remember, if you've been on my channel for quite a while, that there was a very incredible sort of miraculous energy in 2022. It started to shift in October 2022, and we moved into a narrowing, reductive energy that was very hard. More for some than others, but it depends on how good you are at like towing a line or working through like a narrowing path or a reducing path. Some people have like artistic mastery of doing that, and then some people get really like panicked and claustrophobic with that. So it just kind of like depends on the person. And then like 2024, it was still kind of a narrowing path, and it was it became more arduous, and it became more climactic, and it started to get past the point of no return with certain power plays or certain shifts in long-running dynamics. So there was a point in 2024 with the final anaretic Pluto in Capricorn where some things were just done, and there was like no and it's not that there was no turning back, but it's almost like as the path narrows, you just have to keep pressing ahead. So I feel like that's kind of like where we are right now. But as Pluto moves into Aquarius, there's going to be a surfacing, I think, especially around like February of 2025, there's going to be a surfacing, and there's going to be a realization about misplaced energy. There are going to be realizations about seeing or not seeing, again, blind or not being blind to certain elements going on. And I think that it means, you know, taking into context that we also have Neptune at the end of Pisces and Saturn transiting Pisces, there's such a focus on like really increasing our senses. And there could also be like sensory onslaught, I want to call it, like really having your senses attacked by all kinds of material factors, such as like pollution or chemical industries, food industries. Like there's an industry sense conflict happening right now, which is also indicated by Pluto and Aquarius. Do keep in mind that the Industrial Revolution occurred under Pluto and Aquarius. So I would say that there will be another version of that, but this time it's going to focus more with like tech and AI. But there's also going to be just a good old-fashioned infrastructural industrial revolution, especially at the beginning of the transit. And then like halfway through the transit, I do see that some green movements are going to really take hold, and there are going to be severe regulations, which I will not take a position on. I don't know what that's bringing about, but there will need to be something that's reined in, unless like everyone wants to just like seriously have their lifespans reduced. Like something will have to be reined in, like seriously, even by like 5 to 8 degrees of Pluto and Aquarius. I feel like it's already at such a terrible point, you know. We're kind of just stream of consciousness in this chat tonight, but that's what I wanted to do. I've already made a Pluto and Aquarius video, and I just really wanted to come on and hold space for this change that's happening right now as a chance for you all to like also just maybe reflect, like, what have the last few years been like for me? What was Pluto and Capricorn like for me? What do I want to see with Pluto and Aquarius? Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about pollution and industrialism and the romance that certain political movements are having with Industrial Revolution 2.0. Let's talk about it. I'm seeing a very powerful group of people who have a psychic connection with industrial means of production. So they feel it. They feel the factories. They feel the processing plants. They feel the refineries. They feel the pipelines. They feel the drilling infrastructures in their actual psyche. And it gives them a sense of, I finally have leverage in my life. So there's a very new romance starting to shape up with industrial technology and industrial components. So take with that what you will. I'm kind of worried about it because I feel like it already happened in the 1700s, and I just feel like it's backward. I feel like it's, I have to be careful using my microphone this way. But I also know that there are a lot of people who don't support it. So it's not like that controversial to say that hyper-industrialism is a backward idea. But why it doesn't seem like a backward idea in the United States is because it was exported to other countries. So there's this feeling in the United States of, to some degree, transcending industrialism. So now there's a romance with it again because it's gone. And I just think that it's so obnoxious to think about it this way. But it also wasn't okay that the industrial means of productions were exported either, because that meant that other people, other subjugated people had to basically go through, like in China, okay, in a lot of other areas in the global south as well. They had to go through the pain of industrialism, through pollution, through also slave labor, okay, in order to then have the produce of that imported into the West. And now certain Western capitalists have a romance with having those means of production like right under their nose again. And I think that is something that is going to get very, very romantic in the beginning of Pluto and Aquarius, because it's like the Industrial Revolution is repeating. Now, there's another branch of it and another segment of it that is just like Silicon Valley, AI, technology, and it's a little bit better. At least we haven't been through that before. At least that's a full-on innovation. And, I understand there is a carbon context to some of it, these servers and, especially running these AI data centers and plants and like Bitcoin mines and stuff. There is a very industrial surge to that. But there's a way I think that some of these, technological constructs can be a little bit more safe for people at a level of like emissions and pollution. But these are like the segments, you all, is we have old-fashioned industrialism and then sort of new-fashioned abstract industrialism. It's basically like a crossroads or a divided path between like Silicon Valley on one side and then the previously exported means of production now being pulled back into the West on the other side. And I recommend buying air purifiers, okay, especially if you live in an area where there's a lot of industrial activity, because there is already a big problem. And this started actually really moving into 2023, where I noticed at a collective level there was a major increase in pollution. That was one of the incredible things about 2020, wasn't it? Was, seeing the air go clear and some of the waterways go clear too. But now people have to catch up, and now there's lost funds that have to be made up for being turned off for a few months. So anyway, this is a good dialogue also about, I think, the cusp of Pluto and Capricorn and Pluto and Aquarius is, I suppose, the intersection of finance and then these like industrial romance, psychological constructs, because that's really what it is. And I would call it a mania. I would even in some cases call it just kind of out of touch with human development. So I think that that's a big problem moving into Pluto and Aquarius as well, is the lack of understanding of history, okay? As a lot of people might be reinventing the wheel, okay? And, going through Industrial Revolution 2.0, because perhaps they just don't know the history of even what the Industrial Revolution really is or was. And so there's kind of like this going in a circle, I think, if we're talking timelines or human progress over hundreds of years. And this is going to be a big point where we decide, okay, are we going in a circle or are we, moving forward as a species? Okay, Pluto and Aquarius, that might be the biggest question. Is it a circle, or is it a spiral, or is it a maze? Is it a linear movement? That's quite a philosophical discussion to have. But there's, while we're on this topic, also, I'm seeing that this isn't even psychic. I've just actually seen this when people are speaking and in certain headlines, that there's now also a intersection of inflation and the energy sector. Okay, so there's a want to resolve inflation through increasing energy production. And I just think it's such a flawed concept. Imagine the earth subsidizing the recklessness of the Federal Reserve. I don't know. You all, this is kind of beyond the scope of this channel, but that's a really good macrocosm for, actually I'm going to call it a microcosm, because when we're talking astrology, we're talking beyond the earth. Okay, so actually that dynamic is a microcosm for what is happening at a greater cosmic level here, which could be a sort of self-gaslighting technique, which is like, I have a belief that through facilitating what I like and what I have a romance over, that because I like that, that's going to resolve this overarching problem and maybe it can, maybe there's a pathway for it to do it, but at what cost? And is it the most resolute or the most synchronous or the most long-term sustainable way to do it? Or is there a feeling of stripping or extraction or destruction in one area in order to tame the destruction in another area? That's not fixing anything. That's not healing anything. That's just changing the source of destruction to a different part on the balance sheet. So that is something that is going to be very visible, and that's going to be something that augments, I think, a different flavor of populism. Okay, so this is like a turning sort of like political psychology, and I'm not even going to call it political psychology. I'm going to more so call it's a turning reality of the way that consciousness on this planet will begin to sort of box in certain prevalent sort of linear movements that is sort of like an expropriation of destruction across certain economic balance sheets. And what it's going to do is it's going to start boxing that in each place, and eventually there's going to be a certain like collapse of a certain previous painful consciousness that has been replaced perhaps by some type of populism that we're not currently aware of. And maybe populism isn't the right word either, but it's the most familiar concept, I think, and maybe the most relatable in this dialogue, but maybe that won't be the right way to term it. But yes, Aquarius does deal with popular movements, and it deals with identity movements, okay? So we're going to also have a different definition perhaps of what identity is, or we're going to start thinking in a more powerful way about identity. So whatever you sort of associate with identity throughout Pluto and Capricorn, right, since about 2008, that's probably about to transform a bit or start to play a role in a very much more powerful or different way. And it's all going to start getting sparsed around almost as like different cells, I want to call it, within this greater conversation that we're having about, I want to call it expropriation of destruction across the economic balance sheet. I'm terming that here in this video. That's what Pluto and Aquarius will deliver in a shadow level. And some people are going to think that that was the right move. Some people are going to think that that's healed something, but it hasn't, because the destruction is still there. So expropriation of destruction across the economic balance sheet, for example, would be a political theory like increasing energy production in order to offset inflation. That's expropriation of destruction across the balance sheet. And, instead we could like really get at the root problem, which is like money printing, which is too liberal, or too, when I say liberal, I mean too unconstrained of regulations on lending. It's usury interest laws, And my point of bringing this up is not to really take any type of political position, but this is an important issue with Pluto and Aquarius, because all of that is very Pluto and Capricorn, all of these aforementioned things. And I think that Pluto and Aquarius it's already trying, it's trying to find a different way, in the aforementioned example, like through increased energy production, and that won't be right, that'll fail. But it's already trying. It's already like gonna go through so many unnecessary, setbacks and hurdles in order to like try to like aim the right direction. And but it's already gonna start changing things. And in a way, like I suppose that there is progress in that, but it's very clumsy and sloppy, and it's very blind from the previous transit, which I suppose would be indicated, wouldn't it? But yeah, and this is going to also compound this sort of like sweep of dematerialization that I was talking about, where people see it. People see like, okay, this isn't working, or this like just because like my gas prices are cheap, it's not really affecting having to pay $500,000 for a rundown house in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, at least I have $25 tank of gas in my car, or at least my electricity bill is $100 instead of $200 a month. But yeah, there is a very, very big benefit for like industrial, like AI data centers and industrialists who really need cheap energy. But yeah, for normal people, it's kind of a nullified point. So that's not going to make people happy. That's going to cause a lot of anger and resentment. And then we're going to have to like channel through all of that. We're going to have to process all of that. But you never know. Maybe things will kind of clear up a little bit more before they're actually implemented. That would be awesome. But yeah, because of, prices and inflation and, not really getting at the root cause of that, sweep of dematerialization, less housing, less owning houses, less material objects, minimalism. Okay. And if you're someone who's like saving up to buy a house, or if you're someone who wants to like, amp up your own personal security, I think minimalism is going to be a great point of the Pluto and Aquarius transit. And you might already be feeling that. In fact, during these last few days of Pluto and Capricorn, I'm gonna move on with subjects. But hey, I've enjoyed talking about that subject. Comment below if you want Sky to make like a historical channel, or some kind of I want to say neutral political analysis channel. I don't know. Comment below, because I think that we need to start talking about politics in a different way. Not from such a partisan standpoint, not from such a not from such a one-sided standpoint. It would be nice to talk about these issues and have some like unity there in a way that's not so, just partisan. So I don't know, comment below. We'll see how we're feeling. But yes, so I started to feel just seriously like the day before yesterday, like right on the cusp of Scorpio and Sag here, which is also my solar return time of the year. I was feeling like, I don't need any more material items in my life. And I was thinking, minimalism really has been a good path forward, because even as like a minimalist myself, I feel like I have too much. And I already felt like with Pluto and Aquarius coming in and being like right on the edge of it, I'm like, I wish I had less stuff. I wish I had like less material stuff to deal with, because it's like kind of keeping me busy. I'm having to like go through things, and, I've recently moved, and it's been like a process of like going through different things. And I've really kind of enjoyed the idea of, making like a household inventory and making sure there's like necessity and purpose around like the things that I'm keeping in my home. And also, trying to sell things that I don't need or donate things that I don't need. And that has been really overwhelming to me, even as a pretty thorough minimalist. So I can't imagine for a lot of people what it's like to have to deal with some of this stuff. And I think that that's also going to be something that we start to see in Pluto and Aquarius, is like, how could you ever have even dealt with all of this stuff as one person? Or like, do you really need that? Or is that tangential? Especially with like the surges of inflation that are oncoming, like our material choices are going to have to be so precise, you all. Because there are going to be very expensive securities that we need to like be safe. And those are going to be very expensive. And we don't want to kind of like prevent ourselves from being able to make those higher ticket purchases by continuing to acquire small level things, So I recommend also, with Pluto moving into Aquarius here in November of 2024 for the final time, minimalism, okay? Also, loving the things that you do have, And I'm talking like everything. I'm talking the spaces that you work in. Home office is such a powerful thing during this time. Clothes that fit you right. I've talked about this for years now on my channel. Natural fibers, natural materials, having things fit right, okay? And also I feel that with the skin too. So like I do feel that this will be a time of reapportionment. So I'm seeing people also fitting themselves differently. So maybe a change in style, a change in clothing, or more properly fitting clothes, or also like maybe weight fluctuations for some people, as I feel that Pluto in Aquarius is going to resize things at every level, from like the body to the psyche to the house to the clothes we're wearing. I mean, do you see some of these new styles coming up? That's pretty crazy to me. But Pluto in Aquarius, big change in styles, okay? A big change in the way people express themselves to the world. Again, the Leo Aquarius axis is the ego. It's the personal image expressing to the world. On the side of Leo, it's in a very individual way, okay? It's like the royal person or the king or the queen, and that personal expression being such a part of their net of power. And then on the Aquarius side, it's the collective movements, it's the group identities, it's the political movements, and the symbolism and colors and social cues that those utilize in order to group. So Pluto is hitting this axis now, and it's been on this axis now for 5 or 6 years, or in proximity to it. So we're already very aware of this whole thing about like, who am I as an individual and how do I fit with a group, and what I wear or how I project or how I express being somewhat of an indicator of group identity concepts. And like all of that's about to really change. Okay, Pluto is the transformer. It's destructive and healing. So different types of identity constructs through personal expression. And I don't know. I'm not an expert in that stuff, honestly. But what I do get at a psychic level is like, is your body happy with what is on it? Is something fitting right? Is the fiber an endocrine disruptor? All right. Careful with things like this. It's another area where I feel a lot of people need to invest and they don't know it, is like natural fiber clothing, natural fiber bedding. Okay. Because there's a big, I think, chemical industry increase happening right now too. And a lot of deregulation movements. So that, it's not just a terrible thing, but it's a blind thing. Regulation, deregulation, it's a blind construct and it has to be placed right. So it's like there are negatives and positives on both sides of it. But the main thing, I think, in this environment that we're moving into now is like we just have to be able to discern what is good for my body, what is not. How can I mitigate or offset the chemicals? How can I mitigate or offset the misfitting or one-size-fits-all solution problem, okay? Now, another thing that I'm going to talk about, which was kind of on my heart about this transit, is more of like an individual micro thing, which is the question about solitary living, solitude, individuation, and also where that's kind of like intersecting with stagnation, as this has been really coming up strongly over the last few years. This kind of depends on what status you went into 2020 with, as 2020 really it really slowed things down and put things into a box in order for positive and negative reasons. But yeah, so like if you went into 2020, for example, like single or living alone, a lot of people have just like continued on that momentum. Also, a lot of people have like stayed in relationships that they wouldn't have otherwise stayed in, just because of the insecurity of the time and not wanting to take chances. Also, a lot of people have stayed in jobs they wouldn't have otherwise stayed in, or have continued to work from home, even if they wouldn't have done that in another context. So there's been a lot of like prolonged stagnation and prolonged feelings, but it's like kind of like not a bad thing, because it was coming from a very responsible energy grid, and it really has been the only option for some people that made sense. But this is going to be very much a part of Pluto moving into Aquarius now, is like how we integrate this and how we kind of like tell the history of this to ourselves, or how we also sort of base our own narrative on this cycle of like, okay, I spent 10 years alone, or I spent 8 years not dating anybody, or I spent 12 years in a relationship that I would have ended after the first 10 months, but just certain things kept things together. So try to kind of like see if you have anything like that functioning in your life. Are there updates needed? If there was ever, you know, that little graphic that comes up on your phone or your computer that says an update is now required, that would be Pluto entering into Aquarius at 0 degrees for the final time off the retrograde axis. This is an update, you all. So I want to, I wasn't even expecting to channel on this, but this is really good. Okay, this is a really positive thing about this transit. And there are going to need to be subsequent updates because I think that a 0 degree outer planet sign shift is always going to bring with it some problematic new features. But here's a new generation, right? You know, I guess it's like the new iPhone, or it's like the upgrade to your technology perhaps coming in here at a level of consciousness, right? At a level of self-perception as well. And at a level of personal projection to the external. What does that upgrade or update look like for you? What's out of time? What's stagnant? What belief systems, what jobs, relationships, or personally chosen statuses are now in queue to be updated? And like try to just kind of judge this by where your sense of like dread or pain or overwhelm was. And try to maybe update along those lines. I mean, here I even like long documents with like maybe a list of things that I feel a little bit that are tedious in my life in a bad way, and also things that I wish that I could do as a person in my life. Okay, things that I know that I need to be doing that I'm not, things that I know that I don't need to be doing that I am, and just like get it in black and white, almost like you're putting together an update for yourself. Like, you know, if you were to read the terms or the information of like a software update or something, it's kind of dehumanizing, honestly, for me to think about it in these terms. But for some people, it'll work really well because we're so accustomed to this sort of like technological context. And some of us are so vague and inchoate about the actual real human changes we need to make that we almost need to spell it out like that. So I love this for Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius, actually, real budgets on black and white. Okay, for some people, cash envelope systems, rein in your spending. And then also like real changes, real schedules, real meal plans, real exercise plans. Like get type A with it, honestly. I don't want to drive the type A people off a cliff of type A crazy experiences. But here at this 0 degree point, I would try to change things. I would try to follow your heart, and I would follow also what your inner knowing about, like, you know what, I don't need to keep eating that type of food, or you know what, I do need to be getting into the gym 3 or 4 times a week, or I need to put a gym into one of the rooms in my house, or creative solutions, right? And this could be one of the positives of the like entrepreneurial injection that Pluto in Aquarius is going to put into place. I'm not talking from a money perspective, but I'm talking almost in like a creative problem solving context. Like, okay, like there are no good gyms around here and I am having to like get into better shape. Like I'm going to install some type of new innovative workout machine into like this room in my house and the problem is solved. And there are like ways, basically, I'm not going to say ways to cut corners. It could be like that too, because there are negative forms of this as well, like taking a very experimental dietary drug to try to lose weight that has like really crazy consequences. So like that would be like a negative form of cutting corners. So watch out for that. You know, this is also like Uranus and Taurus, and also getting towards the cusp of Gemini kind of working, where it's like, okay, we've got to be creative. If we want to ever get ahead in a world like this, we've got to make things work. Sometimes we've got to make our own path, or carve our own path through a very difficult system. But on the other hand, we can't cheat either. So like finding these things where it's like, that's such a clear, healthy example of carving your path. You know, you didn't have a gym that was available to you, so you made your own gym on a really good budget in your own house. Or, you know, you had a problem with like eating out all the time, or like a fast food addiction or something, and now you have 3 simple meals that you cook yourself that cost seriously like $200 a month to make happen at the most. And like there's all this like excess money and you're like in better health and everything. There are like these great, wonderful, easy ways to solve problems here. Also the people context, like having people come into your life, teaching you how to cook, okay, If you have a struggle with like a food problem, or say having like a new physical trainer come into your life, or, people is another way to do this, because some people are doing too much themselves too. It just all depends on the individual. But, this is in the greater idea of, the question of solitude and the question of stagnation in our own life. And a lot of us have to just shake it up a little bit. We have to get into a space of creative problem solving. And we've got to be willing also to do things sometimes in not such entrenched or common ways, because Pluto in Capricorn has made like the appropriate way to get into better shape, which is, spending a bunch of money at this gym. Okay. And it's maybe created like all kinds of economic systems that are like, this is the way that you do this. And like, this is not working for a lot of people. So there's going to be this sort of like bootstraps feeling, like I'm going to figure out my own way to get healthier. I'm going to figure out my own way to have like income in my life. Okay. Or I'm going to find, my own individual path. But like this clashes a little bit with Pluto and Aquarius, because it's all about these collective ideas and it's all about teamwork and integration. So it depends on your momentum coming into this transit and what you're accustomed to operating through. But there's just going to have to be a way that we honor all sides of this, like creative independent solutions combined with a greater social network, or combined with a greater people context. And it does seem like an important period of time for making connections with people who have similar beliefs. Okay. This could be through social media, or this could also be through local community building. But there's going to be a major focus on that too, especially with considering that one of the final things I think I'll talk about, that we're entering this transit with the debilitated mutual reception of Jupiter retrograde in Gemini and Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. I made a video about that, which I'll link below. There's a lot of indication to me that some type of matrix or infrastructural grid is about to drastically transform, or some kind of major problem along communication lines is going to change as a result of Pluto and Aquarius, because it's happening at the same time that Pluto moves into Aquarius. The point that I'm making here is like all of our communication habits, whether it be through social media, how we get groups of people together, how we connect with each other, this is about to drastically change right now too. So maybe it's hard to implement anything right now, but I would say that there's a focus on it coming over the next few months, and that this transit, the greater focus of it is to, in some way, finding new, fresh ways to connect with others who share similar ideas, and at the same time maintaining your individuation. Okay, so finding that balance also with having the South Node in Libra, okay, when this transit goes into effect. And not being so scared to express yourself, not being so shy, okay, I think is going to be a big thing about, having a grand air trine as we move into Pluto and Aquarius with that transit, with Jupiter in Gemini, with the South Node in Libra. And all of these axes being really strong right now. But at the same time, we have Pluto sextile the Sun in Scorpio, right as it changes into Aquarius. So we had the cusp of Scorpio and Sagittarius with a Pluto sextile to it, right when Pluto changed. So it's interesting to me that Pluto changed sign for the final time right on the cusp of its ruling sign of Scorpio, and into Sagittarius, which, what are the odds of that, It says to me that the interplay between the Scorpio archetype and the Capricorn archetype, that sextile, was a big part of this transit, which speaks of like deep earth, ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom, and understanding how our human energy force works at a deeper level than perhaps what we understand at this point in collective development. So we have that combining with the aforementioned communication issues, combining with these sort of like geopolitical, geocosmic issues. And yes, we have a redefinition of unity and a new idea about groups, coalitions, and movements coming in. And I'll just finish this video with the statement, like, try to take whatever weight off of yourself that you can. There should be something lighter, right? We have Pluto moving from the heavy, heavy earth sign of Capricorn into the very light air sign of Aquarius. So do what you can to take it easier on yourself. And try to install some of these updates if you get the chance. Anyway, everyone, I'm going to sign off. That's a long video today. So much love to you all. Like this video, comment below. Let me know how you felt about it. And there are still free trials on Patreon, only for a limited time, only for the remainder of this live premiere season. So those will not be in effect for much longer. Check out a free trial to Patreon. And I will be so looking forward to seeing you guys for some really exciting live premieres for the rest of this year. There's going to be a global dynamics for the final chapter of 2024. There's going to be 2025 year ahead forecasts. And those will all be in December, each Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. So come over to this YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below and turn on the bell notifications. And I will see you guys at live premieres. Have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. Much love. Bye.